Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good morning. It is a chilly Monday morning, and we are so glad you're with us. It's 5:07 on O'Connor and Company. What a beautiful weekend we had in D.C. this weekend, and we're going to have some beautiful weather this week as well. So plan to go outside. We've got a great lineup today. At 7:05, we'll talk to Joe DeGeneva on the latest legal news. At 7:35, Trevor Maddich, WMAL's Washington Commanders analyst. He'll recap the first game of the season. At 8:05, we'll talk to Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears on her run for governor in Virginia. It's very exciting. And at 8:35, Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, on Trump's latest legal issues. And he'll also give us an update on the Secret Service. I'm Julie Gunlock alongside the one and only Joe Concha, Fox News contributor and author of the new book, Progressively Worse. Joe, thanks so much for sitting in for Larry this morning.
Julie, I got some bad news for all you Commander fans. The Buccaneers just scored again. Oh, my goodness. We're like 12 hours later, and they can't stop
Are we still
Baker Mayfield.
So you're here and you haven't slept. Great.
No, not at all. I did the big weekend show on Fox last night and just decided, screw it. I'm going right through. I'm going to watch the Lions and Rams. And
I saw your
Rocky
tweet
IV.
last night. I saw your tweet last night of the setup. You have quite the setup. Sports watching. How many televisions do you have?
The Fortress of Solitude. Yeah. So for those at home who did not see the tweet, basically I have 4 TVs going at once down in my basement. I'm the original Joe in his basement. And I got like 4 fantasy teams. I'm in all these pools. I got to keep track of what's going on so I can watch 4 games at once, including the Red Zone, which is tremendous. And it was a great weekend. You're right. The weather was just, particularly on Sunday. My goodness gracious.
Well, I will say
the best weather.
Oh my gosh, it was so gorgeous. I will say that I did show my husband your tweet, and he immediately started typing something on his phone, like a man cave dreams that he has. So he was impressed.
Tell him to embrace garage sales, because 3 of those TVs are from garage sales. I got them like $25. Oh, it has a scratch on the screen. I don't care.
My husband is famous for that. He recently dragged a grill from a neighbor who had put it out for the. Oh, I won't go into that. Anyway, let's
the freebie steal. I like that.
Let's talk about the full-blown panic the Democrats are in this weekend. Joe, I'm sure you saw the news. Nate Silver, not exactly a conservative. His new models have given Trump the highest chance of winning since July. I'm reading from a Newsweek article here. Donald Trump's chances of winning the 2024 presidential election have reached their highest level since July, according to the latest projections from Nate Silver's election model. Silver's forecast model gives Trump a 60.1% chance of winning the Electoral College compared to Vice President Kamala Harris's 39.7%, with the former president taking 277 electoral votes to the vice president's 260. The latest prediction gives Trump his highest chance of winning since July 30th. Trump leads in every battleground state other than Michigan and Wisconsin, where the candidates are tied. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Wow. I mean, we've seen this trend now happening for about 2 weeks, right? And ironically, after the DNC, Julie, which was the greatest DNC ever as far as the convention is concerned. I mean, it couldn't go better. I mean, she has all the momentum, joy. Yep. The month of joy has now met reality. Right, and reality is that after people got over the Joy and Vibes campaign, then they looked at their grocery bills, like I do, and they looked at they go to get gas, or they go to pay rent, or anything they have to buy on a daily basis or pay on a monthly basis, and they're like, wow, things are the same with Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee as they were as Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee. Who do I blame for this? Oh, right, the people in power. And Kamala Harris has tried to make Donald Trump the incumbent. We need change. It's time to turn the page. Turn the page on what? On your own administration? Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we're seeing now at this point as far as what Nate Silver is seeing at this point. His newest forecast has Trump winning 63.8%, new high. Kamala Harris's chances of winning are about 1 in 3. right? 36%. And then you talk about, and he's not based on national, forget the national polls, people, please. It's all about swing states. And in Pennsylvania, Nate Silver has Trump winning 64-36 as far as his chances of winning. All right, chances of winning, 64-36. Michigan, 54-46. Wisconsin, 53-47. Arizona, 77-23. North Carolina, 75-25. Georgia, 68-32. Nevada, 61-39. So these aren't even close margins at this point, chances of winning. Silver has it as Trump winning all 7. If he wins 4 of those 7 states, he's the next president. And the fact that he has him winning all 7 of those states tells you that this debate tomorrow night, Julie, is everything for Kamala Harris. This whole campaign comes down to her ability to speak extemporaneously for 90 minutes as opposed to 16 minutes like she did with Dana Bash and having her emotional support animal, Tim Walz, by her side. He won't be there. The teleprompter won't be there. She now has to win that debate tomorrow by owning all of Joe Biden's policies. And I hope that Donald Trump keeps repeating that over and over again. You own this. This is you. You're the incumbent. If that debate even goes halfway decently for Donald Trump, he's your next president. I'm sorry.
I agree. And it was interesting in a podcast. I think Dana Bash did a podcast this weekend, maybe Friday, where she talked about that interview. And she was very frank and said, I just couldn't get straight answers out of her. Dana said something about, you ask once, you ask twice, you ask 3 times. By the 3rd time, you're not going to get the answer. And so she was very clear that she was evasive. And I think that it's one thing in a friendly interview that Kamala kind of does her word salad thing. But in that debate, she is going to have to give clear answers, because one thing Trump is very skilled at is at least giving straight answers that people trust. I mean, they do. Yeah. And so I absolutely agree with you. And that's why Kamala apparently has been holed up in some hotel for 5 days. I think she, of course, went out for her spice run. But aside from that, she has really been sort of sequestered. She's been in this hotel room. They've even apparently hired a Trump sort of impersonator.
I heard that.
So she's working hard. She has she's very clear on this. She knows that this is important, just as you laid out.
And Julie, remember what they did with Biden before the Atlanta debate, June 27th. They holed him up at Camp David for something like 5 days straight, and they had 18 people prepping him. I think that's a problem because, obviously we're doing a broadcast right now, right? And you do this all the time. I do it all the time, whether it be on radio or on TV. If you over prep and overload that CPU, especially hers, which I don't think is the most vast CPU, with, all right, you got to say this here, you got to say this here, you got to memorize everything, and then you get out there, you have no notes, you have no teleprompter, you have no ability to look at something and say, oh, this is what I should say here. I think that she's going to short circuit, quite frankly.
I completely agree with you. Look, we're going to talk more about this in just a moment, but first it is 5:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the 5s. There's Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So, Joe, more on this Nate Silver news. How do you think the Democrats are going to react? I think we've started to see a little bit of the panic. But I think, Trump made a good point this weekend when he said, with news like this, with Nate Silver's news, is there going to be fraud? Can we overcome some of the shenanigans that we saw in the last election?
So I interviewed Julie Laura Trump not too long ago, and I asked about that. I said, okay, there are a lot of Republican voters who just say, well, they're going to cheat anyway, right? And she said, we are flooding every single precinct that we think that this may have happened last time. She didn't quite put it that way, but, she implied it. We're talking about Detroit. We're talking about Atlanta. We're talking about Philadelphia, particularly those 3 cities in those major swing states of Michigan and Pennsylvania and Georgia. And I think in COVID, maybe you could kind of get away with some stuff because people were isolated and there are a lot of mail-in ballots, and there will be again this time, but I don't think nearly as much as we saw in 2020. I think that the RNC is on top of this, and they're going to make sure that anything that seems nefarious as far as Atlanta, for example, Fulton County, where suddenly a pipe burst. Oh, we have to stop counting. We will be back tomorrow. I think that the jig is up and people are paying attention, and I just don't see how they could pull that sort of thing off again.
Well, I will say I have been so impressed with some of the training that I've been seeing going on, both at the grassroots level, like Scott Pressler, and also just sort of getting the legal sort of ducks in a row to ensure that we can challenge things. Yeah. I think this will be different. I think we are more prepared, and I think poll watchers and are much more trained up this time than they were the last go around. So hopefully, I will tell you though, as much as this Nate Silver news is good, I sort of refuse to feel excited just because, I mean, for instance, this election Nostradamus, he correctly predicted 9 out of 10 presidential elections. He says Kamala's going to win. So, for all of these great predictions. For all these great predictions, I feel like just give it a week and then the polls will switch. I don't know. I hate to be a Debbie Downer. If Larry were here, he would be calling me an Eeyore. He hates it when we're negative. But I feel like it's I'm constantly up and down. I feel like, oh, this is great. And then you see news. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm totally convinced at this point.
Well, let me ask it. Do you think Kamala gets better or worse before the election? Because I say when she didn't speak and she was the Ron Burgundy candidate where you put it in teleprompter, Kamala will read. That's all she did during those 5 weeks where all the joy and all the vibes were like the thing and she rose in the polls. Now she has to speak. She's got to do that debate. And if it doesn't go well, then they're going to panic like they did with Biden. They're going to put her out there for some interviews and it'll go worse. In other words, I think she's peaked. And now steadily going down. When she has spoken over the last 2 weeks, she did that economic policy speech, for example, and then bought out price fixing by the government, and that was not received well. Then she said, oh, if you're a new homeowner, I'll give you $25,000. And people are like, wait, we did that in 2008, and that crashed the economy. That's bad. And then that CNN interview that we talked about, which was, the rhetorical version of a hot stone massage, she still couldn't get through that. Like, she was asked, Dana Bash, like, basically, here you go, T-ball. I'm putting the beach ball on the tee right now. What are your plans for day one? And she didn't have a coherent answer.
Yeah.
So I don't think she gets better. The premise that she could win and win back the polls right now based on her ability to be a good candidate, I saw it in 2019. We saw it in 2019. She had to drop out before 2020 because she's not a good candidate.
Yeah, and Joe, and absolutely,
that's where my optimism comes
honestly, from. Okay, maybe this is very helpful because you have to remind yourself they're keeping her hidden for a reason.
That's right.
They're keeping her hidden. They have put her in this hotel, and they don't want her out there talking. Listen, it is 5:21. We've got more to get to. Again, right now it is 5:21. Coming up, we're going to give you an update on Liz Cheney's latest announcement to, surprise, vote for Kamala Harris. It's not really a surprise for anyone, is it? So, Joe, did you hear not just Liz Cheney, but her dad is voting for Kamala Harris? Is this really a surprise?
Wow. This probably adds like 5 points to like Trump's lead, right?
Exactly.
Where is the Dick Cheney coalition in this country at this point? The guy who shot somebody literally in the face. I think that in Liz Cheney's case, she's like the George Conway of the Republican Party, if you want to call her a Republican, right? She lost by, 30 points?
Yeah.
In Wyoming?
Yeah.
That's really hard to do. And then she realizes that the only way she could get back on TV is to say things like, I endorse Kamala Harris, which there she was with Jonathan Karl, who's written 3 anti-Trump books since Trump came onto the political scene, and 0 on Joe Biden, which is remarkable, right? Yeah, because he's objective.
Yeah.
So that's what gets her on TV. And Dick Cheney, I guess, at this point, you know what? When you think joy, and you think the Kamala Harris campaign, you think Dick Cheney, right? I mean, that's a happy guy. I do love the Democrats sort of
fawning over these people, right? It's like, it's the same with Romney, right? This is a guy they said was like torturing his dog and killing people. And,
That's right. Gordon Gekko.
And wanted to put people back in chains. And Dick Cheney, was a war criminal and should have been, in Gitmo. And now they love him. It is so sad. But I have to say, I feel a little, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I'm not saying that Dick Cheney is totally out to lunch, but we don't see him much anymore. He's obviously, older, and he's, it's not like he's out there doing campaign speeches. I almost think it's so cruel that she's dragged her dad into this. It's almost like, come on, Dad, defend me. I don't know. I feel like it's just so untoward that he's involved in this at all. And I feel like she's probably dragged him into it.
Oh, she completely has, right? Yeah. He's 83 years old, by the way. I just looked it up. His name is Richard Bruce Cheney, by the way. Who knew? But when you're Richard, you're Dick, and that's the way that works. That's what this feels like. She's like, I'm going to endorse Kamala Harris, and then no one paid attention, and then Dad. Wake up, Dad. Can you endorse also this Kamala Harris person? I mean, here we are in a world, Julie, where we have two Cheneys endorsing the most liberal candidate ever to run for president, yet we have a Kennedy endorsing a Republican. Where are we?
We're going to talk more about this. We're going to have some clips and some other things. So, stay tuned. It's 5:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good morning and happy Monday. It is 5:36 on O'Connor and Company, and we've got a great lineup today. At 7:05, we'll talk to Joe DeGeneva. He'll give us the latest legal news. At 7:35, we'll talk to Trevor Maddich. He'll tell us about the game last night. And at 8:05, Virginia Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears on the run for governor. At 8:35, we'll talk to Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, on Trump's latest legal issues, and he'll give us an update on the Secret Service. I'm Julie Gunlock, alongside the one and only Joe Concha, Fox News contributor and author of the new book, Progressively Worse. Joe, thanks so much for sitting in for Larry today.
This is fun so far. Can we do it for another 3.5 hours? Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Well, look, we were talking about Liz Cheney and her not surprising at all. If you're surprised, what is wrong with you? Endorsement of Kamala Harris. I want to just, for those who didn't catch it last week, let's play cut one.
All right. This is something that should prevent people from voting for him. But I don't believe that we have the luxury of writing in candidates' names, particularly in swing states. And as a conservative, as someone who believes in and cares about the Constitution, I have thought deeply about this. And because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Okay, so she calls herself a conservative, so she's going to vote for someone who wants unrestricted abortion until 40 weeks. And she cares about the Constitution, and she's going to vote for the candidate who's going to pack the court, right, and get rid of. I mean, it's just astonishing to say those things in the same sentence, Joe.
Wow, I'll take this trade, right? I'm a fantasy football guy, all right. So I'm giving up in my trade. Bush, Cheney, Mitt Romney, and I'm getting back in my trade Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Tulsi Gabbard. I'll take that trade. Yes. I'll take that tomorrow. Thank you.
Yes.
Let me see if I understand this, Liz Cheney. So you're pro-life, you're for low taxes, you're for border security, you're against sanctuary cities, and you are supporting the person who supports all this stuff?
Yeah.
Out of what? So we're talking about you? I think this is a vanity project. I really do. This has nothing to do with principles.
It's two V's. It's two V's. It's vanity and it's vengeance.
Ooh, well done.
She is so angry about Trump. She is so embarrassed by what happened, and she is so sort of horrified that her, her sort of family dynasty and sort of the establishment has been destroyed, that she wants revenge. I also want to say one interesting thing. We don't have the clip, but I don't know if it was that speech or another speech, she talked about we just need to get past the Trump years and then we can rebuild. And she says, I'm really looking forward to rebuilding. I'm sort of looking forward to being a part of the new Republican Party. As if the audacity of thinking she is ever going to have a role in anything post-Trump after working to destroy this country and supporting a candidate who will destroy this country. It really is amazing that I don't think she gets how sort of she's repelling people at this point. They don't want her to be a part of this. Let's really quickly, I want to play JD Vance's reaction to Liz Cheney's endorsement of Kamala. Cut 2.
Your thoughts, JD?
Well, maybe the best thing, not the very best thing, but a very good thing that I could say about the next presidency of Donald J. Trump is that he's going to make sure that people like Liz Cheney are laughed out of the Oval Office instead of rewarded, because this is a person whose entire career has been about sending other people's children off to fight and die for her military conflicts and her ridiculous ideas that somehow we were going to turn Afghanistan, a country that doesn't even have running water in a lot of places, into a thriving liberal democracy. And for that, Liz Cheney was willing to kill thousands of your children. Liz Cheney, you know what? I think it's the best thing in the world that she's supporting Kamala Harris. You are right. Blessed are the peacemakers. Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney make very, very interesting partners. They get rich when America's sons and daughters go off to die. They get rich when America loses wars instead of winning wars. And they get rich when America gets weaker in the world. We want American strength, American security, and most importantly, peace. Let's bring peace back to the world. And Donald Trump is the candidate to do it.
Well said. It's sort of like what you said, Joe, about it being a good trade. Goodbye. We will not miss you.
I wasn't thrilled with the J.D. Vance pick as far as VP. I wanted Youngkin. I thought Youngkin gives you Virginia. I think Glenn Youngkin is a tremendous governor in Virginia. Those listening, obviously, in the area know this. He has something like a 62% approval rating in basically what's a blue state, which is really hard to do. But every time I hear J.D. Vance speak, boy, he's good.
Isn't he
and
good?
He's going to help deliver Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, particularly given his upbringing. And the fact that Tim Walz actually criticizes him like, how dare you come out of poverty and then go to Yale? See, you elitist? You moron. Oh, my God. But the fact that, and you could play cut 4, Michael, under this, because I want to make this point. I want to make sure that we drive this home. Dick Cheney. There it is. The Imperial March, the Vader theme.
I was wondering if you were going to get that in. Well done.
We got to get it in. Dick Cheney was compared to Darth Vader by liberals, and now you're bear hugging this guy when he gives you an endorsement? You morons. I'm telling you, this only helps. And by the way, let me read a tweet from Liz Cheney, okay? Yeah. This was in August of 2020. Kamala Harris is a radical liberal and supports dangerous policies that would devastate millions of Americans. See more from my interview with Sandra Smith this morning on Fox News. Oh, yeah, you're not a phony whatsoever. I'm telling you, this only helps Trump.
Joe, we're going to talk more about this. I love this. But for right now, it is 5:43.
WMAL, making sense of the forecast. Because you never know what Mother Nature has in store. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
You know, Joe, there's a lot of hyperbole when it comes to these Cheneys. They're saying things like, Trump is the worst thing that could happen to this country. Dick Cheney, said that Trump can never be trusted with power again. It's almost like they took a nap during the first Trump administration, because none of the things that they're saying are going to happen happened the first time around. It really is a matter of sort of spreading misinformation. It's sort of like Greta Thunberg with an AOC with the climate change disaster predictions. It's just not going to come true. And I think the reason they're doing this is because they want us to feel fear is a very powerful weapon. It is very, very powerful, and it's all how you wield it. And I think one way to distract from Kamala being such a disaster is to make people more afraid of a Trump administration. And again, we've already been through one, and everything was kind of hunky dory. So I think that's the strategy at play.
Julie, if I'm Donald Trump during this debate tomorrow night on ABC, I say this over and over again. I want voters to remember my record while I was in office. All these things they say I'm going to do, you don't have to imagine it because you've already lived it.
Right.
So did you like your life between 2017 and 2020 up until COVID, which upended everything? Or did you like your life from 2021 till now as far as economy and inflation and crime and the border and foreign policy and education, all those things? So Kamala Harris wants you to ignore her record in office, which continues to this day. And she tries to paint Donald Trump as the incumbent, and we need change. Change from what? Your own administration? So, yeah, fear is a great motivator, but I think it only gets you so far. And in those swing states that matter, particularly Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, I think in the end, if you don't have a message of hope, I hate to borrow the Barack Obama, slogan, but it worked, right? Hope and change, or Ronald Reagan, right? A shining city on the hill, or Donald Trump, make America great again. Those are the winning slogans, not this guy's really bad. Vote for us. We're not so bad. I'm sorry.
Also,
it doesn't work, Jill.
It is so insulting how she talks about joy. I am feeding. I know you've got kids. I am feeding, Joe, I don't know if you know about this about me. I am feeding 3 teenage boys. My grocery bill, Joe, I go to the grocery store almost every day. It's unbelievable. And I'm starting to buy things like ramen, because I just need to fill them up at a low cost. Lots of potatoes, lots of onions, lots of cabbage gets eaten in our house because it is really difficult to make it. And the message I'm given by Kamala is I should be filled with joy. It's insulting. But, let's not forget, and I think this is important, Kamala was less popular when she was serving as the vice president. Her approval rating was lower than Dick Cheney's after he shot a guy in the face. Okay.
So true.
According to pollsters at NBC, nearly half of all voters viewed Harris negatively, with just 32% approving. Mike Pence managed to survive the entire coronavirus without hitting Harris's net negative 17 approval rating. You look at sort of unpopular politicians, Cheney being one of them, he didn't even sink that low. So again, I think the only option here is to scare people, and we've been seeing that. Through the lawfare and through all of the rhetoric from the Democrats, and it's going to ramp up over the next couple of days, particularly with Nate Silver's predictions.
Julie, that's why I'm so bullish on Trump, because I don't think that impression of Kamala Harris when she was vice president, you talk about those numbers, 32% approval, that can't change all that much, right, from the joy and vibes August.
I know, yeah.
And reality is meeting the road right now, and people are like, oh, yeah, that's right. She's responsible for this. She's the incumbent. And I think that's what Trump has to hammer home in this debate, that you're the incumbent, not me. I'm the guy who gave you a better life when I was president, not you when you were vice president or when you want to be president. You're going to lower the cost of food, like you just talked about, Julie, on day one.
Yeah.
No, you're in day one right now because you're in power.
Right.
I think that's an easy argument to make. He's going to hit it out of the park, I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, there is more to come right now. It is 5:53.